Hi, I'm Uwe Greiner. I'm from Munich in Germany, and I'm a gaffer. I'm working in the light department for over 30 years, and I'm gaffing for more than 20, and yeah, I still love this job. For this setup, I was thinking about how I could do something a little bit uncommon for an interview setup, because normally you will do some three-point lighting or something like that. So I'll have a softbox on one side and a little kicker on the other side and a slide backlight. And I was thinking about maybe we could do it another way this time. And so I was thinking about to bring more top light in play. So, because yeah, it looks a little bit more interesting, let's say, I guess. And also, it's good if you do a multi-camera thing, because every angle is shootable in a way, and it's also, you can use it for different ways of interviews. Yeah, it's also, you can do easily a two-shot with two people like this, because both have a nice light in the face. Or even if you go to the other edge of the top light, you could do a nice key backlit interview too. So if you wanted a little bit more moody, so you can use it for many different options, let's say. And in this case, I used an air glow float with two light matte light tiles in it. So, and they are on 2 pixels both, so I can shape around a little bit. In this case, it's a little bit more backish, so that my face is not lit too bright. And I have a little kicker just with a reflector from the light bridge from the eyes, if you have a close shot, that it's not too dark in the eyes. So that was the idea, to say, okay, I was thinking about something a little bit more uncommon, and yeah, I don't know, maybe the result is crappy, but maybe it's interesting. I think my start into the film industry was a little bit unconventional, because I was studying history and I did a summer job in a film distribution company, just to earn some money during the months in summer. And at the end of the summer, they asked me to stay. And I was thinking about it, and I was, let's say, more poor a student, and I decided, okay, I go for the money and for an interesting job in the film industry, because I loved films at that time. And then I sneaked into the industry. So I did not really start a technical job. It was more about so economical, or it was just, I was selling movies in the end to theaters. At one point, when I was doing this office job, I had a trainee who was studying production at the Munich Film School, and we really bonded in a way. And then he asked me to get to be his roommate, and I was a young boy, or young man, let's say. And I said, oh yeah, cool, sounds nice. And then I got into his flat. I got a room there, and there were a lot of students, film students. And one of the students once said, hey, I need some help on a little short film. Maybe you could help me. And I said, yeah, of course, I'm this office guy. I can organize some things. And he said, yeah, no, I don't need somebody to organize anything. I need an electrician. And I was like, okay. Electrician, yeah, I don't know anything about it, but of course I can carry a cable or I think you need stands or something, or lights. I can carry them and help you with this. And he said, yeah, we need every hand. So I said, okay. I took 1 week off to do this short because I was interested to get on set and see how it looks like if a movie is getting made. And then I got on set, and then I met the DP, and I said, I'm here for electrics. I have no idea, but I want to help. And he said, that's good because there's nobody else in your department. So I was the only one. And then and he got a really famous DP on commercials. And so we worked for 1 week in one room. So that was good. And we had a small package. And then I was playing around with lights, and I was like, okay, that's a quite cool job. So that was my first sneak into the light department. For me, there were some people quite important during my career, let's say. Of course, the first gaffer I was working for, he was important because I got into the department and worked there for some years to get some experience. But for me, it was more important to meet some very important for me DPs, let's say. And that was, the first was Arthur Reinhardt. He's a Polish DP. And he asked me to do my first big international show. I was in this German industry, and let's say after 6 weeks, after he called me, I was on a multi-million-dollar set with Kevin Costner. Quite surprised what we are able to do on a set like this. And then he was really a mentor because he was a really DP, he was not operating, and the director was setting up the camera. So we were we had a discussion about lights for months on that show. And there I learned a lot, and that really brought me to really the next level. And after that, or some years later, I met Markus Förderer, who I now did 3 films with, and that was another step for me, because that was such a fulfilling way to work and a way to think about how we could light a film. And he was like me, much into LEDs, so because I really started at an early stage to use LEDs. I'm now using LEDs for 14 years. And he was also very, he loved LEDs as well. And then on our first show that was called Tides, really ran into using all these multi-spectrum LEDs and creating a world out of the color space of these pictures. So when I start a project, of course, the first thing is to talk with a DP about what is his vision about this movie. And so normally he's showing moods or pieces of a movie he likes, or some pictures he also sees in this film. And then I try to find out, okay, what is the thing he maybe likes on it, light-wise. And normally then we start a discussion about one special setup in this film, how we could light it. And I think then we find a way together that I learn how he's thinking. And then we build one setup or we plan one setup for one specific scene or specific studio set. And from that point, I expand the setups. So let's say we try to find a way of to think in the same direction, and then from that point I start planning the other stuff. So in my long career, I had, of course, some challenging setups. But let's say there are 2 that are important to me, so in the aftermath. And the first setup was a studio setup of let's say a whole apartment building, or one floor of an apartment building, including a courtyard and stuff. And we had no money for this film. It was like a film school first feature film thing. And I had to run this studio with me and one electrician, that's it. And so I had to plan everything that I'm able to like do every setup on a dimmer board. I can like easily change from day to night without like moving the lights around. So we had some more lights, but it was just, we have that switching on and off, so that we can easily change everything. And we didn't have the manpower to move something. So, and then there was a lot of thinking about it, of course, a lot of planning and setting it up and seeing that it works. That was, for me, it was challenging, but of course a very nice experience. And the second setup was for tides, because we had to create a big tide land space there. And this has to work also for day and night and sun and overcast, so for every light situation. And we only had a Roscoe soft drop that was created by Marcus Förderer quite well, so that we can shape it a lot and put it into different moods. And there was nothing else, you know, there was like mud on the floor and a soft drop, and that's it. And it was a huge set. And to think about how we could do it and how we could handle it, and that was also challenging, and yeah, also nice that it worked that well. But it was much easier because I had Marcus, who was like much more into this thing, and so he really knows from the beginning, I guess, what could work, and it worked out well. I think it's quite normal for every scale of a show that there are some constraints from the production. You know, you never have enough money in the end. And so from my perspective, of course, I know the budget, and that makes me think about on a different way about a film. But normally I always try to be as effective as possible. So I always like to keep it simple. Yeah, that's my thing, to keep it simple. Even, you know, sometimes simple is quite big, you know, because maybe the set is quite big, for example. But I always try to keep it simple, and then normally you have to adjust to the constraints that you have. But I think if you're effective and you have a good contact with the producers, I think it's not so hard to deal with it. You have to know what's possible, and then you have to be in this space that is given. So time is, of course, always an issue in our industry, you know, because the time is the most expensive thing. And you always have to think about it, what kind of production you are in. And let's say if you're in a really big show, like multi-million-dollar show, the time is even more expensive. Yeah. So that means, compared to a smaller show, on a big show, you're doing a much bigger lighting setup because it saves time when you're shooting. And on an indie film, yeah, of course, you can't afford so big fixtures, or a lot of fixtures sometimes. But I think you're moving around more because the time is not that expensive as on a big show. So you had to be more flexible on smaller shows. but you have to be better prepared to do everything on a big show. For me, it's very important to have be in good contact with my crew. And I think everybody from my crew knows that I like it if we work quite calm and be relaxed, don't run around, don't mess things up, just staying cool. Whatever happens, we're gonna find a way. And they know that I'm always backing them up. I think that is my way to work with my crew, and then I think they can work well because then they can feel free to do what they can do best. And so with other departments, I think it's all about respect. You know, I think you have to respect everybody who's on a film and who's doing his best. And that's always the way I try to get in contact with them. Yeah, full of respect and being nice and kind and trying to understand what their issues are, you know, because sometimes they are different from mine. And in the end, we're working on the same project, so we have to combine those issues to get into a maximum result. Yeah, being a good gaffer is always hard to ask a gaffer, I guess. So, but of course, yeah, I think there's some things that are important. Yeah, I think you have to really understand what the vision of the creatives are. Yeah, what's the movie they really want to make, and why. I think that's a important thing. Then, what is really important, you have to be a diplomat, because you're like, in a way, in between production and the creatives. You know, of course, you want to fulfill the wishes of the creatives, but on the other hand, you know the constraints of the production. So, and I always try to reduce the walls between these two parts and try to understand both sides and try to communicate both sides to both sides. And if you're good in that, I think it really helps a lot, especially if you're on bigger shows, because then it gets more complicated to explain things, why some things have to be like they had to be or would be good to be like this and things like that. I guess that is an important part. I think over the years my role has changed in a way, or that in the old days, you know, the DPs exactly knew the fixtures that are on the market. So they made a lighting list and say, I need two 10Ks and 18K or 5 par cans or whatever, you know. But in these days, the technology changed so fast that the DPs got lost a little bit on all the fixtures and possibilities that we have in our department. And so to creating a lighting list moved a little bit more to the gaffer than it did in the early days, let's say. So that is an important change, I guess. And yeah, and they're expecting more work that you do for them, you know, that they come into a set and it's like 90% lit. So this is also something that they expect from you. And I'm not so sure if it was like that when I was starting. Maybe they did, but I didn't realize that's possible. But yeah, but I think they had so many things to think about, and I think in these days they want more help to get into a set that is like really well pre-lit. Yeah, I think the DPs in these days, they really like the advice for the fixtures that are on the market. That they love to talk about what they want to achieve, and they're asking you what you think, what fixture might be the right tool to get to that point, or to create that light that he is thinking about. And yeah, that is, it's more a dialogue now than it maybe was in some years ago. Don't think about the money you're gonna earn. You know, it's think about the project you want to do, or think about the job you want to do, or think about where you want to get to, not like about the money that you earn now. So, and I think for me that is important because it's more satisfying if you're on shows that you really want to do, and also if you're on shows where you learn something from what you're doing, if you're not always doing the same thing. And so, and it's good to plan a little, yeah, to know, okay, I'm doing this project because I'm gonna learn this and that on that show. And that is, I think, important, you know, because if you want to get a gaffer, you have to, in the end, you should know a lot of things. And it's good to collect it from every project, something that you can collect. I think as a young gaffer, it's important to concentrate on some things. And one thing is the light axis, that you always have in mind, where is my light axis? So it's also a DP's question, of course. But I think as a gaffer, you sometimes run into the problem that you then have to hold this axis. And you can also talk to the DP to maybe change the axis or use another axis, because this is sometimes important, yeah, to be on the right side, yeah, to be on, let's say, the more backlit side, that you're not so frontal, or that you realize you're running into a front light situation, so that you try not to. That is one thing. And the other thing is that you don't try to solve a problem of one fixture with a second fixture. This, of course, sometimes could be an issue, but I think it's always important to think about what's the problem of the fixture number one. Maybe it's the position is wrong, intensity is wrong, color is wrong. So what's the problem? And not like some people try to add a fixture, yeah, to solve this problem. But normally, if you add a fixture, you get the next problem on fixture number two, plus that you have two fixtures that are creating a third problem. So sometimes you can solve a problem with the second fixtures, but often you can't. And so it's always important to think about what's the problem, what's the reason I don't like it or the DP doesn't like it. It's always position, intensity, color, softness. Yeah, that's a thing that you should think about. Is that everything is all right, or have I bring another fixture? But normally first think about fixture number two and its problems before you start bringing the new material in. Yeah, for me, in these days, it's very important to have a control board on set, like a Blackout, Grand MA, or Gaffer Control, all these tools to control all the fixtures on set. So that is, in the moment, the tool for me, to be honest. But of course, there are a lot of other tools I'm always using, like big black fields, white fields, you know, all these classical things. So I would say that's, yeah, and I wouldn't say there's this special fixture I'm always using, you know, because it's changing a lot, and it's also changing from film to film what is really useful. Sometimes you have a dash dot as an highlight and you're using it everywhere, and sometimes you don't, yeah, because you like to bounce on a whiteboard. Yeah, so, but to have black and white, some fixtures and a board, so that is for me the most important. So I think the industry, technology-wise, changed a lot over the last, let's say, 15 years for different reasons. Of course, the obvious reason is that we transformed into an LED world. Yeah, that is, of course, the most important reason. But also, we have now so many specialized tools to make our life easier. Yeah, let's say like this thing. Yeah, see the air glow that is, I don't know, 6 kilos and makes a big surface, or like perfect reflectors that we have here, or soft boxes, and all these tools that are now on the market, so, or projection lenses for a lot of pictures. So that changed a lot. So let's say, of course, the move into the LED world was important and made my life much easier and much more interesting too, in a way, because there were so many options from one point, and all the accessories that you can use now, you know, makes our life much easier. So the future of lighting it's an interesting thing to think about, because you know, we have like AI in the moment, and it's coming up in different on different ways, and I think nobody really knows what's happening with AI. So it's, and where like it will hit our department or where it won't, maybe, because so that is something I would say it's interesting. Yeah, if we maybe start creating set light and later add AI light to that. So that is this very, or I don't know, it's so very in the future, but maybe in the future. And the other thing is, in the moment, I guess everybody's asking, how could we get off the big lights? Yeah. So will there come, or will there be something that replaces the big HMI's fixtures? So that is, I think, what I'm interested in to see what's happening on that market. If I should give me some advice as a younger man, I think I should have asked more when I was an electrician. I should ask more my gaffer or the DP why they are doing things, or more what is the concept, why is this the way you are thinking. Yeah, because then I would have started learning a little bit early, let's say. Yeah, but when I was at that age, you know, I was like working and try to do this as good as I can, and I was not thinking about is there something I want to know. Yeah, so I was just doing things, and so in the aftermath I would say it would have been nice to ask something. Yeah. The gaffers I worked with, they were lighting in a very different way from the way that I'm lighting now, so I don't know if this question would have been good to ask. But yeah, it was at least interesting to think about how they would have done it, maybe. The last show I did was 9 Perfect Strangers, like a Hulu show with Nicole Kidman. And after that I did some months off to just relax a little bit and be with my family. And now I'm right before my next show. It's called Eurotrash. It's a real art house movie, and we're gonna shoot it on 35mm, and we will see how this works out. I'm thrilled about it in a way, but we will see. And also it's really art house, so it's no big budget, not a lot of trucks, not every piece of equipment I like, of course, but it's all LED, and that will be quite interesting too. I think for me it was very good to start to work in the industry, but maybe because I started like 35 years ago, and the industry exploded over the time, and now everybody's asking what will happen in the future, and what is AI doing to our industry and everything. But in the end, if you like to tell stories, or like play around and don't take everything too serious, maybe the industry is right for you.